I'm Nina. Sitting on the porch of my cabin in Corrales, wrapped in a soft blanket with a mug of tea in my hands, I'm gazing at the New Mexico sunset, which has changed from orange to deep rose and finally to violet. The peace and tranquility here are a far cry from the turmoil I endured not so long ago. It's been a year since I escaped a life that felt like a suffocating prison, and the memories are still raw, yet also a reminder of how far I've come. My mind drifts back to that fateful day when everything changed. I was working on a design mock-up in my small freelance office. The afternoon was quiet, and the sun was casting long, dusty stripes through the blinds. Just as I was about to export the file, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, but something made me answer. "Good afternoon. Is this Nina?" A calm female voice asked. "Yes, speaking. I'm Lisa from the law office of Miss Victoria Red in downtown Albuquerque. I'm calling regarding the estate of your grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor Thompson. Ms. Reed needs to meet with you as soon as possible." My fingers tightened around the phone. I mumbled, "I think there must be a mistake." My grandmother lived in a small rented apartment all her life. She didn't own anything. Lisa replied gently, "I understand, but Miss Reed will go over the details. Can you come by today? We're open until 6. I don't know how I managed to say yes. When I hung up, I sat there motionless for several seconds. The idea that my grandmother, who had always seemed so simple living, cutting coupons and wearing the same old clothes for years, could have an estate was almost beyond belief. I saved my work and stepped outside into the dry New Mexico heat. As I drove to the law office, memories of my grandmother flooded back. Her gentle hands guiding me when I was a child, her kind laughter. She had always been a rock in my life, but I had no idea what secret she had been keeping. When I arrived at Miss Reed's office, the cool air, conditioning and the faint smell of polished wood made the place feel formal and almost intimidating. Ms. Reed, a well-composed woman in her late 50s with a sharp gaze and gray, streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, greeted me. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Nina," she said. "Your grandmother, Eleanor, owned 3 residential units in Albuquerque, one in Hilltop, one in Midtown, and one near Old Market. All fully paid off. And this," she tapped a document, "is the deed to a small cabin just outside Corrales with about 2 acres of land. There's also a savings account with a substantial balance that she contributed to for over 40 years. I was in shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My grandmother had always been so private, and it seemed she had been a shrewd investor, quietly saving and investing over the years. Ms. Reed then handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in my grandmother's neat handwriting. "This was left specifically for you." She instructed that you read it alone. That evening, I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the envelope. It felt heavier than all the property documents combined. I broke the seal, and the paper smelled faintly of lavender, the same scent I always associated with my grandmother. As I read the letter, my throat tightened. My grandmother wrote about her youth, how she saved every extra dollar she earned. She described working multiple jobs, not out of need but as a way to save and invest. She bought the cabin in Corrales as a place of peace, a refuge she hoped I would find comfort in one day. But then the tone of the letter changed. "My dear Nina, I've watched you give so much of yourself in your marriage. I worry that your husband, Ben, and his sister, Carla, may not have your best interests at heart. I fear Ben doesn't understand how to support you as an equal, and Carla may see you as a means to an end. You deserve a life based on respect, not control." These words hit me hard. I had been in denial for so long. I had brushed aside Ben's dismissive remarks and Carla's intrusive behavior, thinking it was just temporary. But my grandmother had seen through it all. She left me these properties and savings so that I could stand on my own 2 feet if the ground beneath me shifted. I had been married to Ben for 8 years, and at first, it was wonderful. He was charming and ambitious, and I thought we were building a life together. When Carla lost her job and asked to stay with us for a month, I didn't hesitate. But that month turned into a year, and she slowly took over our home and our lives. Every time I tried to make a decision, whether it was about my career or how we decorated our house, Carla would have an opinion. Ben would just shrug and say she meant well. I stopped pursuing my hobbies, stopped seeing some of my friends, all in the name of keeping the peace. One evening, I came home late. As I approached our apartment, I heard voices inside. The door was slightly ajar, and I heard Ben and Carla talking in low, angry tones. She's too naive to handle all this. Now that she's got the details from the lawyer, we have to make her sell the properties fast, Carla said. Ben sighed in frustration. I still can't believe that old woman left her all that. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Enough for my business project and all our plans. Carla scoffed. Nina is just lucky. She's always been gullible. If we play the family card, she'll do what we want. Ben continued, once she sells, I'll file for divorce. Clean break. She won't fight it. My blood ran cold. I felt like the room was spinning. They were planning to use me, take my inheritance, and then leave me. I forced myself to stay still and quietly recorded their conversation on my phone. That night, I hardly slept. By morning, I knew I needed to take action. I called Miss Reed, and she agreed to meet me immediately. When I played the recording for Miss Reed, her expression hardened. I'm glad you recorded this, Nina. Under New Mexico law, all your inherited assets are considered separate property. Ben has no claim to them unless you choose to transfer ownership. But you need to be careful and protect yourself and these assets. She gave me a list of things to do: open a private bank account, rent a safe deposit box for all the documents and the letter, move all the property documents out of my apartment, and keep everything secret from Ben. Over the next few days, I followed her instructions carefully. I felt like I was walking on thin ice. Ben and Carla seemed to sense that something was different, but they started to act overly sweet. Ben would come up behind me in the kitchen, wrapping his arms around me and saying, maybe it's time we start a family. And we should think about a bigger house. I knew he was just trying to manipulate me. I kept my face neutral and let my phone, which was face down on the counter, record our conversation. Carla also started to act differently. She cooked elaborate breakfasts and complimented me on everything. But I could see the calculation in their eyes. They thought I was falling into their trap, but I was one step ahead. As the days passed, their patience wore thin. One morning, Carla was going through my planner, and when I confronted her, she scoffed and said, if you have nothing to hide, what's the problem? That night, she told Ben I was being paranoid and difficult. The next day, Ben confronted me. We need financial transparency. If we're going to build a future together, you can't keep secrets. I just told him I was sorting things out. Finally, the confrontation came. I was cooking in the kitchen when Carla stormed in. We need to talk, she snapped. I'm cooking, I said without looking up. This isn't optional. You've been avoiding us, and we're done being patient. What do you want? I asked quietly. Your inheritance. It belongs to the family, not just you. We're all struggling, and you're sitting on all that money. I looked at her firmly. No. You owe us. Ben has supported you for years, and I've been here for you. This is how you repay us? I almost laughed. This isn't about family. It's about control. Ben entered the room then. Nina, this behavior isn't acceptable. Carla's right. We're a team. I looked at them both and said, I don't owe either of you anything. The silence that followed was electric. They stared at me as if they were seeing me for the first time. I turned off the stove, wiped my hands on a towel, and walked out of the kitchen. That night, I packed my bags and left a note on the kitchen table. I'm staying with a friend. I need space. Don't call me. I'll reach out when I'm ready. I drove to the hilltop apartment. It was empty, dusty, and filled with the smell of forgotten seasons. But it was mine. I cleaned it up, bought some groceries, and set up a mattress. The next morning, I met with Miss Reed. She reviewed all the recordings and documentation I had gathered. "You've done everything right," she said. "We filed for divorce today, citing emotional abuse, manipulation, and financial coercion." That afternoon, Ben received the papers. My phone buzzed non-stop with calls, messages, and accusations, but I blocked his number and Carla's. Now, a year later, my life is completely different. I've learned to manage the properties, and my design business has flourished. I spend my weekends at the cabin in Corrales, surrounded by the beauty of nature. I've found peace and independence, and I'm grateful to my grandmother for giving me the chance to start anew. As the last light of the sunset fades behind the mountains, I whisper, "Thank you, Grandma. I'm finally free."